Hello, this is a talk about how to work with Chinese partners and why work in China with Chinese co-production partners. So why work with China? Well, first of all, it's obvious. It's this gigantic country, huge population, thousands, and I mean thousands of broadcasters. A really top rating show in China, which is the New Year's Gala, 800 million viewers. And even a quite normal documentary on the documentary channel, maybe 90 million viewers, 30, 40, 90 million viewers. So huge, huge market. Also, China's the future. We need to know more about it. Chinese producers, Chinese broadcasters are very keen to work with us as well. So you're pushing at an open door in many ways. The government has legislated for there to be more documentaries. So I come from a factual background. So from a factual point of view, it's a good place to work because there's a big market there, especially for documentaries. China has not generally made so many documentaries in the past, so they're really looking to foreign distributors and foreign producers to come up with content to fill this new market that they have. Chinese partners really, really keen on formats. Absolutely, really, really keen to work with foreign producers to co-develop formats for the Chinese and the international market. Chinese broadcasters want to understand how the international TV market works. After many years of not traveling much abroad, people are now traveling, very, very keen to know how TV works in other parts of the world and wanting to know how to get Chinese content out to the world. And as a way of doing that, to understand the way we do it, to understand what our audience is like. And British people have an advantage because there's really only one channel in the world that everybody has heard of in every country, and that's the BBC. Much more than people have heard of Discovery, much more than people have heard of Nat Geo, certainly more than people have heard of Arte or France Television or the Smithsonian. The BBC is up there. So they expect British people to know best how to make TV. Before I begin, I want to mention a very good friend of mine who's lived in China for 20 years, probably more than 20 years now, speaks very fluent Mandarin. He says, if you meet a foreigner and they tell you they understand China, that means they don't. So everything I say comes with a very big caveat. It's a very hard country to understand. And people who tell you they understand it, probably they just don't understand it. That's the reason why they're saying it. My story with China, I first went to China in the 1980s as a volunteer teacher, 1985. Spent a year in China. Then went back in the 1990s as a filmmaker, made various parts of films in different parts of China. And then in 2006, I was very lucky, I was working at Granada TV at the time, and we were asked to pitch for a series about the Beijing Olympics that was being funded by Discovery International and CICC. I'll talk a bit more about CICC later because they are really, for factual producers, they are the way into China. They're the Chinese equivalent of Screen Australia or the National Film Board of Canada. So Discovery International and CICC. And we made a 5-part series. We won the pitch and we made a 5-part series about the Beijing Olympics, which I was going to show you, but actually I don't think there's very much time, so I'm not going to show it you because it's 10 years old already as a film, so quite out of date. But following on that, the relationship that myself and my team built up with CICC, and this shows you how things happen in China. We made this 5-part series. We got on very well together. So then after that, we then made 6 one-hours on engineering. We then made archaeology programs together for Nat Geo, for Discovery, always with CICC. Design. And now I run 2 online channels for CICC in China. So one, which I just gave you all a bookmark, which is about everyday life in China. Well, it's everything in China today, from wildlife to jobs that people do, to foreigners who live in China, to science and technology in China. So that's my perspective. I've made more than 20 hours of programming with Chinese partners on Chinese content in the factual space. So how do you get started on your Chinese adventure? And I'm guessing because you're here, it's because you're interested in some way. The first word that you'll come across all the time when you go to China is the word guanxi. Guanxi means connection, it means relationship, it means network. It also means more than that, but it's a really important concept in Chinese culture, which is to do with making relationships with people as being the building block of society. So we often say in Britain, as producers, we say the idea is what's important in getting a commission. In China, the relationship is what's important in getting the commission. So that can be a bit dispiriting when you start out. You think, well, how on earth am I going to make relationships with a Chinese broadcaster or with a Chinese producer who I'm going to work with? How do I do that? Well, I think it's easier than it sounds, because making relationships with Chinese partners is a bit like making relationships with commissioners in the UK or commissioners in America or in France. You have to nurture the relationship. So face-to-face, better than email. Phone is better than email, but face-to-face is best. You have to go to China. You've got to go and meet people. You have to watch the channel of the person who you want to make a relationship with. What do they like? What do they not like? What kinds of content do they already have on their channel? In exactly the same way as in the UK, you wouldn't go into Channel 4 and pitch something to them that was suitable for BBC 3. You might, you know what the channel is, you know what they like. So the same thing goes with commissioners there. Listen hard to what they have to say. When you meet them, let them do the talking. Don't sell yourself, let them do the talking. Hear what it is that they want. And you can find interviews online. You can read the trade press. Inform yourself about people who you think could be your partners there, just as you would do with a commissioning editor in Britain or in France. What do they want out of the relationship? Think that this has to be a two-way street. What are they looking for? What are you looking for? See how you can meet in the middle. And search until you find somebody where your wishes align. It could be that what they want out of the relationship is a high-status partner. They may like the fact that you work for an important company, or they may like the fact that you've brought a commission from PBS or from the BBC or a high-status partner. That may be the most important thing for them. It may be that they want China rights for a project that they like the look of. It may be that they want to develop a partnership with you so you can develop formats together. They may want to understand how you do it, how you've made the programs you've made, how you've been successful in your area of television. It could be that they're responding to a government initiative and actually they're never going to commission anything from you, but they want to be seen to have had a communication with a foreign producer. One warning, many Chinese are really, really fed up of foreign producers arriving thinking they've got lots of money. Really, really fed up of that. So if what you're after is money and not a long-term relationship, then that's a very hard thing to do, and probably China's not the right place to go to do that. So you want to make this relationship, you're ready to listen, you're ready to find out what your Chinese partner wants, but China can seem a bit impenetrable. Here's this huge country, how on earth do you get to meet someone at CCTV or the Shanghai Media Group, huge organizations? Well, it's much easier than it used to be. So for example, you've got PACT in the UK. PACT are very well connected with lots and lots of different Chinese organizations, and they will help you. UKTI, similarly, they run trips to China. They help fund trips to China. CBBC, the China Britain Business Council, they also, are go-betweens and can help you meet the right the right people. So there's actually lots of ways of getting to meet Chinese potential partners. Also now, many Chinese producers and broadcasters come to international events. They come to Sunnyside of the Dock, they come to the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers, they come to Real Screen, they come to MIPDoc. So there's lots of opportunity in those spaces to just make contact with someone for the first time. They're looking to meet people, you're looking to meet them, and gradually you can start to build a relationship. But I would say you do have to go to China. You can't just rely on having meetings outside of China with Chinese partners. To convince them you're serious, you've got to go there. There are plenty of producers who work a lot with China. I don't know for British producers here. There's plenty of people like Lion TV who work a lot with China. Go and pick their brains, see if they can introduce you to somebody. I can help you. I know lots of people in China. You can always come and get my business card and I'll help you. When you're thinking about China, don't forget the online channels. They're younger, they're less bureaucratic than the broadcasters. They're very open to a wide range of content. So they're good people to think about as well. But some things in China really are very different, and it can be easy to forget that, because when you're out in China, people are incredibly friendly, incredibly warm, incredibly hospitable, and you have a lovely time. And it's easy to forget that, in fact, this is a highly regulated market. There's censorship of any programs that go out in China. There are limits on foreign formats. There's all sorts of regulations, and the regulations can change at a moment's, at the drop of a hat. I met somebody a little while ago who was working on a game show, and overnight the rules were changed and you weren't allowed to give prizes anymore. So they had to completely rethink the whole format so that there weren't prizes. So another thing that's different, generally it's new. There are some broadcasters in China who've worked a lot with foreigners, but in general, people haven't. And so it's like there's no template. It's not as if you can get something off a shelf and say, oh, this is a contract that works. This is the way we do it. These are the kind of deliverables. This is the kind of share of profits. Generally, it's new. And so that takes time because everything has got to be thought out. And I think for you, there's no template. For your Chinese partner, there's no safety net. There isn't something they can fall back on. And I think China is a very risk-averse country, and that can be very brave of the people that you're dealing with, that they're prepared to stick their necks out and be the first person in their organization to do a co-production with a foreign partner. So bear that in mind. So it's not easy. It really isn't easy. But sometimes it works.
An intrepid team of explorers descend into a lost world. Among the very first to probe the mysteries of an unexplored labyrinth.
We have to be very careful that we don't go beyond a point where we cannot get back.
This place we're looking at here, maybe a dozen other people have been to in the world. It's like an opportunity to be an astronaut and go to the moon.
But in their search to understand its secrets, they might have pushed themselves too far.
Better make a move.
In the back of my head was, okay, how are we going to get him out of this cave?
Jed.
The Chinese call them Tiankang. Giant holes in the ground, hundreds of meters wide, and big enough to contain unexplored subterranean forests.
Inevitably, we're short of time, so we'll just finish there. So why did that work? It worked because I was working for ITV at the time, so high status partner number one, ITV Studios. Secondly, the international broadcaster who I brought to China was National Geographic International. So that was a high status partner for CCTV 10. It's a Chinese topic. It's a geological phenomenon where they had these gigantic holes in the ground. China. I mean, they're like half a mile across and a mile deep, and they're completely extraordinary. And they've got underground, subterranean forests, and they're quite amazing. Not very well known in China either. So it was a Chinese topic, not very well known to CCTV's audience. Uncontroversial. And then the other thing is timing. CCTV9 had just stepped onto the international scene. They were wanting to make a bit of a splash. And so when I came with this project, they jumped on it. I have to say, when a year later I came with the follow-up project, which they'd said they liked, timing wasn't so good, and the whole thing fell apart, and we never made the second. So other things that are different working with Chinese partners, it's very slow. It's not a quick thing. You can't just barrel in there with a good idea and get on and make your show. It's very slow. This is a country of 5-year plans and 10-year plans, you know. There's a, I'm sure, apocryphal joke about Zhou Enlai, which people have said many times, but apparently somebody asked Premier Zhou Enlai, what do you think of the French Revolution? And he said, it's too early to tell. So that's the kind of mindset that you're working with. So things go slowly. Language. It is hard to overestimate how hard it is to work in a country where you don't speak the language. You know, producers depend on our charm, we depend on our endlessly reshaping something to persuade somebody, we rely on our sense of humor, we rely on all of that, and suddenly you're in a meeting and you're relying on someone else to do that communication for you. And you'll find yourself on numerous occasions when you sit there and all your Chinese colleagues, your translator and everybody are all talking amongst themselves, and you're thinking, will somebody please translate for me? And it's just, you're kind of teenager at the disco, the person who's being ignored, you know, it's really... And then when you say, what were you saying then? They'll just say, oh, we were just discussing, you know, the meaning of a particular word, or we were just clarifying how this person pronounces their surname, or it'll be something which doesn't matter, but you still feel very excluded. And you always have that sort of niggling feeling that when things go badly, if only I could have said it myself rather than through a translator, I would have been successful. So language is a big problem. China is it's a puzzle. It's a real puzzle. But China is both very hierarchical and very democratic. And so it's really hard to know. So in the UK, if the channel controller says, I want this project, everybody else jumps into line. You get to make it. In China, the top boss can say, I want this project, and then there can be endless delays in which different people in different departments can raise objections, can slow things down. You know, the copyright department can slow the contract down for 3 months while they pick through the fine detail. There was a story told on the radio the other day. Bertolucci was telling a story about the making of The First Emperor, the feature film, where they filmed in the Forbidden City. And they'd got a letter from the president of China saying, this is fine. And he said, so he thought that was fine. And then when he got there, he realized that actually the people who really mattered were the people who worked in the Forbidden City and lived in the Forbidden City. And if they weren't happy with the film, it didn't matter that the president of China had said it could happen. It wasn't going to happen. So it's a funny, that's one of the reasons why it's so fascinating working in China, because it's a constant puzzle to understand it. But that can be one of the difficulties of working there. Okay, I wanted to talk very quickly about how to make content about China that works for an international market. First of all, quickly, China's the land of giants. It's the land of record breakers. The world's biggest restaurant, the world's biggest footballing academy, the world's fastest train, the world's biggest radio telescope. that's a kind of concept that can travel internationally. International broadcasters are also interested in that kind of giant record breaking. Second thought, surprising aspects of China, things about China one hasn't seen before. I'm going to show you a very quick clip from a series that we made called Secret China.
But our journey into Secret China begins in the southwest, in the province of Yunnan, and with a man who's lived in the village of Ajeka all his life. Suomu was born in the house where he still lives. A father of 3, he lives here with his wife and 2 grandchildren. Suomu, like all the people in his village, is a member of the Hani ethnic group. Around 2,000 years ago, their ancestors settled here and tried to do that most basic of things, grow food. But the results were anything but ordinary. Their new home was too steep and forested for ordinary fields, so to farm the rugged terrain, they moved mountains and sculpted the first rice terraces in China. But having conquered one problem with this miracle of ancient engineering, they met another. Their steep terraces fell victim to landslides. The only way to solve the problem was to keep the terraces filled with water all year round. And the only way to achieve that was with one of the most ambitious plumbing jobs in history. They built dikes and ditches. They dug channels and sluices, until at last they created an irrigation system that connected every single field on the mountainside. And that's where Suomu comes in. He's the water master of Ajeka village.
Interestingly, that was shot with an entirely Chinese crew, and then we re-edited it in the UK. It went out on CCTV 9 in China, and in the UK, in Europe, in the rest of the world, it's been shown on Turner Networks Asia, France 5, and also in Switzerland, Germany, and Belgium. So I think it's a series that shows parts of China you don't normally see, not Shanghai, not Beijing, but very remote rural areas. And some other, couple of other thoughts if you're looking for Chinese content that travels globally. One is what's hot in China today. So have a look at China Daily, have a look at there's a online channel called Trending in China, something called GB Times. They give you an insight into what's important to the leadership in China, and that gives you a sense of what they care about in China, and then you can look at how that might work internationally. For example, we made a series about design in China, looking at how China's moving from made in China to designed in China as they're trying to increase their IP, which was obviously a topic that was very much on the agenda in China, and so CCTV 9 showed that. But also France Television was really interested in it as a different way of looking at China. Then another approach is to have a new twist on a familiar topic. So Chinese New Year. Everybody's heard of Chinese New Year. We know about lion dancers and fireworks. But Lion TV recently, with CICC, did a 3-part series for the BBC, which went out 3 nights successively week before last. And it turned it from a single documentary about Chinese New Year into a multi-presenter show with the hairy bikers and Kate Humble going into ordinary Chinese people's homes and seeing how they cook, what they cook for New Year, going to firework manufacturers, showing how they manufacture, how they make the fireworks for the big shows, and going into the Beijing West train station to see how they manage millions of travelers.
我来中国杂技团有17年了，我从11岁的时候就来北京学习杂技。那个时候没有什么基本功，也没有接触过这个杂技项目，所以就是觉得好玩，在电视里看见过。我们的那个孙老师就觉得，你进杂技团晚，你就需要比别人付出10倍、20倍的那种努力，你才能够有一天超越别人。
这敞开点手，你现在这俩手太并了啊！
每天训练大概在8、9个小时吧。难就是难在，不但自己要完成这个180度的这个圈儿，还要过来接空竹，还要连续的转。有的时候还要把空竹左起来，转2周，甚至转3周。这就是我们空竹比较好看又比较难的一点。反反复复的练，一上午转完以后很晕恶心，就是中午吃不下去饭。然后过了几个月，习惯了就好了。